Everybody, this is Eric Rousseau with the Comedy Film Fest. I am joined today with the creative minds behind Pickleheads, playing at the 2026 Comedy Film Fest. And with me, I've got Jared and Josh. How are you all doing today?
Doing great. Happy to be here.
Doing good. Yeah. Thanks.
Awesome. Jared, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about the film.
Yeah. A writer, producer, lead actor in the film. And I had finished a mockumentary and then was looking for my next one. I gained 30 pounds for that one. I thought it was funny, which was not funny. I could not lose the weight. Ended up picking up a paddle here in Austin and just became addicted. And I was like, there's obviously something here with this grassroots sport, and I think it's ridiculous and it's funny, even when it's more funny when people even take it more serious. So I was like, let's kind of write this comedy, and it's a very big homage for like Happy Gilmore and all the comedies that kind of grew up in the late 90s, early 2000s. That it's not really making fun of anybody, but it's just making fun, and with zero agenda besides fun. So teamed up with an amazing team here in Austin. Like Josh was able to bring his whole Rooster Teeth team back together, crew and some cast. And from my previous 3 movies, getting like Eric Nelson from a Western to like come out and play this 80s star, and just friends of friends. Ryan Cooper brought in a lot of his friends, contacts, actors, and even Josh too. But the set life was just incredible, and we can't wait for people to actually see this.
Awesome. And also, we've got Josh here. Josh, tell us a little bit about, Jared mentioned a little bit about how you got roped into this project, your role, and your kind of take on it.
So I was the director on Pickleheads. I was also a producer. I don't think I'm technically in the movie anywhere. I think you hear my voice once. That's really more like temp ADR that just stuck. Pickleheads was a project, Jared had been working on it a bit before I came on board. And I through Ryan Cooper, one of the other producers, I had read a couple drafts of the script and sent notes. And then as production got closer, they had reached out to me because Jared initially was going to direct as well. And I think Jared told me this first time in, he said, I want to be the next Tommy Wiseau. He said, I want to write, produce, direct, star, show my ass. He did, I think, 4 out of 5. Because he wanted to focus on the comedy and jokes and just making sure his focus was in the right place. So I kind of came on board as a conduit for their ideas, as well as kind of bringing my own flavor to the mix. Moved very fast. I mean, by the time I was on board, I think we were less than a month before production. We were rocketing toward production. I remember I was at, we filmed in November of 2024, and I was at Austin Film Fest as a panelist like a couple weeks prior. And I would like basically go to a panel, come back to the hotel room, and we'd be working on like the director pass, like, final revisions for the shooting script. And so it was madness, but it was really fun madness. Maybe the most fun set I've ever been on. Just really, really, everyone gave a damn. They were there to make the funniest movie possible. Most efficient set I've ever been on. I want to say most days we we finished filming the scheduled things on a 12-hour shoot day, maybe 7-8 hours in. And we were like so far ahead that we were basically got into a rhythm of midday, just inventing new stuff, or the night before we're like, we're in a good mode. Let's do, let's go ahead and start workshopping it. And a lot of that stuff made it into the movie. There's a joke in the movie about how Spielberg shot all this extra footage in Jaws when like the shark was broken. And like, that's basically what we were doing. The shark wasn't broken. I think Jared was fine, even though, he looks a little strange, but we did have a lot of downtime because we were so efficient. The only exception to that was the big fight day. We shot all of that in a single day. And I was like, we're not putting anything else on this day. We need the whole day.
Yeah, that's fair. It's always a good move to just like those kind of very choreographed moments, just leave that to it. And then, once you do it, everyone go home. Well, it's really cool to hear how efficient it was. And I think Jared mentioned it a little bit. You're pulling from some Rooster Teeth crew that you had worked with before. Obviously, deep ties to Austin there. Tell us a little bit about that crew, and maybe that was kind of helped with the efficiency aspect.
Oh, for sure. I was at Rooster Teeth for 6 or 7 years, and I was there when I wasn't there at the very beginning because they started in 2003. When it was like 5 guys in an apartment. I came on board. I started working with them in some capacity about 2011. And then I came on full time in 2013, and I was maybe their 30th employee. So it was still a relatively small company. And then within 2 or 3 years, they ballooned to like 500 employees. They got bought by Warner, and it just became this crazy thing. But I remember those first few years as this very, very scrappy time. And even after, to be honest, we never had Hollywood budgets, but it was just about how do you stretch your money farther than it should be able to go. And, even if when we were I did a lot of television work for Rooster Teeth when I was there. Even when we were doing TV series for like El Rey, we still approached it like an indie film. It was always an indie. It was, economies of scale. It was how can we shoot this one location from every single angle? A lot of it comes down to post too. How can you maximize, especially for comedy? Like if you're not finding new jokes in post, like you're doing it wrong. Like you should, the edit should be so much funnier than the script ever was. And so, we brought that same mentality. So it was a similar, Taylor Cameron was a DP I'd worked with on a couple series. Drew Saplin was our first AD, who's great. Anna in makeup, and just a crew of people who just really, really knew how to do this. And I try, from my end, to be good about, this is the most artsy frou-frou thing I'll say, but I try to listen to what the movie wants to be or whatever project it is and be open to that. And the only way that works out is if you're surrounded by great people who are bringing great ideas. And some, you got to shut stuff down or fight for things you believe in too. But, if you're willing to listen, and you have a great, smart crew, it's pretty incredible what you can do, especially on a low budget.
As filmmakers and other filmmakers that are out there, when you have that crew that you've kind of worked with in that tight capacity and you've had to be scrappy before, it's interesting because hearing you talk, it's like this is that moment that you've been building towards all of those years. It's putting into practice now, and it paid off clearly. To hear that it was such a smooth set and shoot is really, really awesome, and obviously a testament to both of y'all for all the work that went in behind the scenes. So I'm curious, Jared, you mentioned a little bit about how this all came to be. What stands out to me, I think it's going to stand out to a lot of people as well, is it's such an interesting intersection. You've got, I don't know if it's specifically said Austin or if it's Central Texas, but Austin, pickleball, comedy are all converging. And it's interesting because it also feels like all of those things in the real world are also converging. Is that something that you were really mindful of, or is it just I'm here and I like pickleball and I like comedy and film and we're doing it?
I definitely wanted to capitalize on Austin being the pickleball capital of the world right now. There was a bunch of pros. I've played and been trained by some pros out here and got their feedback, and it was exploding at the time. And we even got the Los Angeles Mad Drops, Major League Pickleball team involved in post. They got their logo in for some product placement. And I really wanted to kind of get the pros even more involved, but they're like, what is this movie? And then once we turned it in and shot at the Tennis Channel, I think they were like, oh man, how can I be a part of it? So I definitely wanted to capture, especially because Austin, even though it's a big city, it's more of a big town to me. I'm from Philly, lived in New York, and then lived in LA for 11 years. And it's got such a neighborhood vibe, which I think meshes well with pickleball and comedy. I remember coming out here to Austin in 2021, and I remember talking to people about possibly using their properties or their business for shoots, and it was like, yes, how can we get involved? And I was like, I always thought there was a catch, oh yeah, and this is the bill, or I'm like, I would just talk about a low budget. They would never talk about money, but they didn't want anything besides to be a part of a film. So that was a big difference between shooting in LA, which, all of the actors and professionals, like it's so easy to get crew and everything's right there. But, with the traffic and everything and the expectations of the business, I think it was just so much easier to capture here in Austin. And that's where I learned, and I was precious to my heart, and wanted to kind of make the film here.
It's interesting to hear you kind of say that, because the other thing that's also happening, and I'm really happy to see it, is there's also it feels like you have a lot of local talent for people who've been around Austin for a while. They're like, hey, I know that guy. Like I had a few moments like that where I was like, wait a second, I've seen him before. But then all of a sudden you're kind of like, whoa, wait, that's a pretty big name that's in this movie, that's in this Austin made movie. How did you go about like filling out the cast? And maybe this is a question for both of y'all, both on the local side and some of the bigger names that are involved with the project.
I think a lot of it was friends of friends or people that we've worked with or like did a small thing with, or like, hey, I'd love to work with you again. I will say that Ryan and Harvey got Harvey on, which was a huge comedy name that I think he worked with him years and years ago, but was like, we shared the script with him and he's like, this is weird. And he just finished a long shoot in Spain and took like an 18-hour travel day to do our movie for 2 days. Like it just shows the relationships, the strong relationships. And Cindy, that it was a producer as well. She knew John would be interested in doing something like this, John O'Hurley, which he was kind of a bucket list person I always wanted to work with him. That was incredible. Like he did it in a half day with a teleprompter, and we even added multiple pages. And then Eric, I had worked with on Cottonmouth, my Western that I wrote. And I found out that he had a pickleball court in his backyard. And I was like, do you want to play the bad guy in this? And, and he read the script. He's like, this is hilarious, man. He's even shooting a film right here in Austin right now. But just a great guy. And he just came in with a great character. I think the fake tan, I don't know who originated the idea, but like Josh, Anna, and we were all talking about, I was like, that would be incredible. Even like, I still laugh like that. You can see his tan lines on his thigh during the fight. I don't know if you noticed that, Josh, in the edit, but
no, I've seen the movie more times than anyone on this earth, and I've never noticed that.
It's so funny to me. And I think the biggest surprise, somebody had dropped out, and then Josh called on his best friend, but I'll kind of let you take it from there. But I think he's the best part of the movie, if you will.
Yeah. I will say real quick that, it's pretty incredible how well the cast came together and worked together. And I had honestly like very little input in, because I had come on board so late that a lot of these conversations were either kind of done or like in flux. And so I was just like, man, I hope these people work. And they did. They really just people who, even working with, not even working with, but when, like, for example, Christine Froseth came out from, just the lead on Apple's The Buccaneers. And according to her, she'd never done comedy, and she's great. She was so good. She chewed the scenery exactly as asked. Like she just fully committed to it. So it was cool to see people who weren't even sure that they could do the comedy, just sort of break out of their shells. The person Jared's talking about is my friend Zach Anner, who plays Michael Jordan in the film, who lived with me in Austin for a long time. I live in LA now, but I was in Austin with obviously Rooster Teeth for 17, 18 years. And Zach was there a long time as well. We met, we were both going to UT 20 years ago. But we had originally written that role for a disabled combat veteran who'd been burned in war, and that was sort of his comedy brand. He like owned it, and so when he dropped out last minute or became unavailable, we went, uh-oh, like that's a tough role these jokes are very singular. But so I called my friend Zach, because we still wanted to kind of feature, the accessibility and inclusive elements of pickleball. And Zach also does, for those who don't know, he has cerebral palsy, and he also does a lot of work doing speeches about, disability and about, accessibility. He and I actually just finished a writing fellowship for a disability foundation called Inevitable, who's great. So he came on board. We literally threw all the script out, and he just literally improvised everything you see in the film. So any of his lines are like not scripted. His whole look, he came up with the Olympics thing because we just by luck, the wardrobe had gotten him just like red, white, and blue stuff. They're just like, he's just gonna be, because they thought veteran, he must dress American. And Zach saw that stuff and went, he wants to be in the Olympics. I'm like, okay, perfect. So yeah, that was a blast. And he's a guy, Zach's a guy who can give you an hour of takes, and every single one is great and different. So yeah, people would just sit behind camera and just watch him go every time.
It's really cool to hear you say that because, as somebody who's been around Austin for a long time, that was one of the people that, seeing Zach really, I lit up a little bit, and I just was like, wait, that's him? Oh my gosh, so cool. And so to hear that story is really awesome. I feel like, there's a number of so many great performances in this, but for me, like, that's kind of like Zach's one of like the breakouts for those who don't know him. Did y'all have any moments like that where people on set were discovering Zach for the first time and just kind of tickled with what was going on?
I would say it wasn't long before everybody kind of crowded around and was just like listening to his talking heads, because off the cuff, and also like Josh would do like just throw lines at him, like almost as Zach would say it. And it just like, they were like two brothers just riffing. And it honestly was magnetic, and it was cool to see everybody kind of like, oh my God, what is he going to say next? And it was just an absolute blast to see. And he's just a great human too.
Jared, you mentioned something, the talking heads aspect, obviously a mockumentary that we're dealing with here. Question for both of y'all, obviously mockumentaries can be so specific. Some people love them. Some people really struggle with them in terms of making them. I feel like y'all really knocked it out of the park. How was going about it in this format different than if it had been, just like, I guess, traditionally kind of the single cam, like non-mockumentary setup? Like, how did y'all go about it specific for that format?
I think, I started, my two first short films were mockumentaries. And it was basically because I was around a lot of actors that want to do the character work. And it's like, you almost find a lot more in the improv than what's written. And you can also shoot it very quickly. It's like efficient. Like you need 3 big moments, group moments, and then it's people talking, and like the gossip builds, and like people are around for it. So it just kind of builds and becomes something better than you thought it was in the moment. And like me throwing lines or Josh throwing lines in this movie, like it just it becomes so fun. Everybody kind of is actively listening the whole time. And then we did Dance Dads, my other comedy that we shot here, about single dads use dance as therapy, and this delusional father thinks he's going to get his family back through dance competition with other single dads. So I would say, like, I knew it was going to be quick and fast, and to get people in not much rehearsal time. I think it's a good format to execute. But Josh, was this your first mockumentary or?
Yeah, first feature. I mean, for sure. I had done part of what I think Jared will tell you got me this job is I made a couple shorts. I had a sketch show at Rooster Teeth for a bit called Arizona Circle, and we had a recurring sketch called Cucks, which was a cops parody, except the cops were only busting cuckolding husbands. And they wouldn't bother White. They wouldn't bother this, bulked up dude that the husband hired into his bedroom, but they would just bust into the bedroom. And there was a whole stupid mythology, like the cucks were always wearing like white muscle shirts and like no pants. So they always blurred. They always had camcorders that only took old like DV tapes. There's a whole mythology. There's 3 of them. There's cucks. There's cuck and order, which is what happens when the cucks have to go through the legal system. And there's cuck-ruption in the department. So that, some of the higher ups are more involved than you think. And then it ends with Point Break parody called Undercucker, where a guy goes and infiltrates the world of cucks, but comes to understand their philosophy and leave his police life behind. Anyway, I showed those to Jared. He's like, "Have you done mockumentary?" I was like, "Let me show you cucks," which usually ends in something else. But in this case, it was a short film to show him. Yeah, hadn't done feature. I do think it's an interesting mix, because I do think there's a temptation that mockumentary is easier. I don't know that it's easier. It's different. Some things are easier. You know, you can get a pile of footage, but then you have to think, okay, well, that creates work for your editor later, right? So it's at some point you're going to take on that work. And I think, you know, that requires going in with a strong plan. So we went in with a script that we liked, knowing that we could build on it. And so making sure we filmed everything that we needed to film. Like if we had to live or die by the script, we made sure to get it. And then sort of keeping track of these extra piles of things. And one of the challenges directing that is that you know, usually we had a scriptie, and you can have scripties keep track of all that stuff, but a scriptie's not going to remember that you want to pay off this random joke, right? So as the director, I'm having to keep track of like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if, for example, the stack of cash was initially just a stack of cash that Hawk gives him. And at some point I was talking to props, and it was like, well, wouldn't it be funny if it was just a stack of fives? Like, it's just a really stupid joke. And then so then we wrote the line for it. Like, you know, like, that's a lot of fives. And then he improvised, you should see the ones. Like, oh, you should say you see the ones later. So it becomes this thing, and it's funny and it cascades, but you have to keep track of it, especially because we're shooting out of order. So you have to go, can I even go back and put a setup in, or, you know, or whatever it is. So there's all of that. And then I would say the other big challenge is, as a director, you have to be careful that the set doesn't descend into what I call improv hell, which is where performances are just going, people are chewing scenery, you call cut, the whole cast and crew is laughing. It was very, very funny what just happened. But you're behind camera going like, I can't use any of that, you know, like, because you're seeing the big picture going like, oh no, like, I got to go be bad guy for a second. And they'll be like, let's do a take where there's no choking. And for context, there's no choking in the script. It just, you know, went there on the first take. So, yeah, but it's fun. It's a different beast.
It's easier in the capture, I would say, but a mockumentary and an improv based film is almost 80% post. So it was like a lot of Josh and Cody, our editor, Cody Gibson, is also local, sweating in a room, or virtual sweating in different places on earth. But it's the trouble and the difficulty is post, and deciding what jokes to keep and what makes sense with your narrative.
It's important on a budget like this to, like, you have to plan for that in production too. Like, it's not about like punting it to post. It's about, like, for example, the gameplay stuff that's in the movie, the actual pickleball matches. Me and Taylor, DP, and Cody had all talked, and we're like, well, we can't it's not a sports drama. If we try to make a sports drama, we're going to run out of money, we're going to run out of time, we're going to fall on our face, or Cody's going to be in the edit into the end of time. So we have to approach it like a mockumentary. It has to be like either for character or joke. It cannot be, now they're up by 2 points, now he's up by 1, now he's up by 7. It's just like this. It's got to stick to the rules of how a mockumentary would shoot, or a documentary, and not try to be Remember the Titans or something. So we were very strict about how we shot so that we didn't overwhelm post in those moments.
It was good to have Josh as well, like, because I wanted to remember the Titans, but pickleball emotionally at times. He's like, this is a comedy. I'm like, yes, it is. You're right. Let's do that.
I think it's really great to hear y'all talk about this kind of like process and everything that went into it, and what the mockumentary process is, because I will say from like a, both a creative standpoint and like the, kind of like festival standpoint, I do think that a lot of people look at mockumentary as like, well, that's the easy, cheap way. And it's definitely, as Jared, was saying, it definitely can be more like cost effective for sure. But at the same time, it's by no way easy. And it's so interesting because I think for everything that we are talking about, for all of the media over the last 20 years that has gone the mockumentary route, it is so prevalent. I see it so much in the festival circuit, and I really hate to say this, it's just so often it's not that well done, and y'all managed to actually rise to the occasion, deliver on it. So just want to say well done there. And you did a thing that definitely a little bit more cost effective, but definitely not easy.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. So, I think with this, it's an exciting time. I know y'all have done a few festivals. Just curious, like what's next for Pickleheads, and what is next for y'all as filmmakers?
Yeah, so right now we have some offers for worldwide distribution, but we need to find the big one that we all like. So we're still seeking, but we just really entered into selling for distribution. But the next move, the next screening we have is the 8th here at a Comedy Film Festival, and looking forward to having our a movie up on AFS screen. So that'd be cool. And then next for me, I want to do a murder mystery mock. It takes place on like a 80s dating show where there's eliminations and there's a murder that happens on set. And once the murder happens, they kind of lock down set and they can't leave. And then like a detective comes in, and all the crew and everybody there that gets involved as a possible murderer. That's the next movie I want to make.
So I don't usually have this giant beard. You didn't ask why I had a giant beard, but I'm going to tell you. It's because this is a guilt beard, not for what I did, but what I haven't finished, which isn't a murder, but a script. And a lot of turns in that sentence. But so I've been growing this beard for 4 months because I've been working on different things, and it keeps being a different goal to finish different scripts. And then something will happen where whatever creative partner I'm working on gets busy, and then I reshuffle the deck and it's a new script. So theoretically, this beard should have been gone like months ago. And my wife's making me shave it Friday for a wedding. So either way, I can only get as far as I can get Friday. Needless to say, I'm working on these 4 different scripts right now that are some variant of 5 to 3 years old, depending when we started them, and hoping to get some of those out into the world for the first time and some out there again. But the next thing I have my eye on is I wrote a film about, which with any luck we'll film this year. But I have a movie I wrote about my dad's death, another hilarious premise. And it is actually a dark comedy. My dad, not to bring this conversation down, but my dad took his own life 8 years ago, and it was an insane time. And I basically, because the circumstances were so weird, and it was such a shock. He just was not a depressed guy as I knew him, that I basically spent the week after his death up to his memorial investigating his suicide like it was a murder. And so I wrote a movie about it, and it's called The 6-Day Detective, and it's about the 6 days I spent investigating my dad's death. And it's surprisingly funny. I mean, it's basically a dark comedy. It's like a grief story, but lens through a detective genre kind of twist, because I'm a strange man. And it's doable at any budget. So we've been putting it together for a while. Ryan, who's a producer on this, is also a producer on that. And I'm finishing what I hope is the final revision now, and we'll take it back out and hopefully be filming in the fall.
Wow. Well, I mean, first, obviously, so sorry about your loss. At the same time, I think, and it's interesting because this has been a common theme as we've done these virtual panels this year, is a lot of processing grief through our creative work, through comedy. So, I mean, it sounds like an amazing project, and I'm happy that, you're working through it and going to bring some comedy through to
Thanks. Jared said he'd play my dad, so it's great.
I look exactly like him.
I already project on him. He yelled at him often on set.
Well, I want to thank both Jared and Josh for joining us today. Again, Pickleheads is going to be playing at AFS Cinema on Friday, May 8th at the Comedy Film Festival as part of the Lone Star State Showcase to open things for the entire weekend. The Comedy Film Festival is happening in Austin, Texas, May 8th through 10th. Jared, Josh, thank you again for joining.
Thank you. We'll see you May 8th.